Imagine holding a small piece of silver in your hand, barely larger than a quarter, yet worth more than a luxury home. These aren't just coins, they're silent witnesses to history, treasures that have passed through wars, recessions, and generations. And now command jaw-dropping prices you'd never believe. Today, we're diving into the top 10 most valuable Kandy half-dollar coins, and by the time we get to number 1, your heart will skip a beat. Buckle in, because these coins don't just sparkle, they shock. Make sure you subscribe now, because you do not want to miss what's coming next. Coming in at number 10, the 1973 Kandy Half Dollar. Now on the surface, you might think, 70s? Not exactly ancient history. But here's the thing, this coin isn't valuable because of its age. It's valuable because of what it survived. Minted in a year when silver content was already fading from American coins, the Kandy Half Dollar of 1973 stands apart, struck with precision on a composition that was supposed to be routine, but wasn't. Many coins from this year ended up with subtle striking errors, weak edge reading, or small planchet imperfections that, today, can transform a simple 50-cent piece into a collector's dream. Now, the circulated condition might fool you. The one we're talking about today has seen the inside of pockets, coin jars, and cash registers for decades. Its once crisp luster is muted, the surface shows the light wear of thousands of transactions, and yet, it has something that keeps seasoned collectors staring, a near-perfect strike on both sides. The obverse still shows incredible hair detail on the bust, and the reverse, that eagle still looks ready to leap off the coin. It's the kind of circulated example where you just know the history is baked in. And here's where it gets fun. A run-of-the-mill circulated example might trade hands for $50 to $80 among casual buyers. But one in this kind of condition, with original mint sharpness still visible, and no major scratches, suddenly jumps into the $1,200 to $1,800 range for serious collectors. Step it up to an uncirculated 1973 Kandy Half Dollar, and you're talking $18,000 to $22,000. And if you stumble onto one with a documented mint error, like a double die reverse or an off-center strike, the price leaps into shocking territory. We're talking $300,000 or more at high-profile auctions. Think about that, a coin you could have found in your change jar in the late 70s, now selling for more than the average US home in 1973. It's the magic of scarcity, condition, and collector obsession colliding. And the best part? Stories like this aren't rare in the half-dollar world, they just don't make headlines unless you know where to look. Which is exactly why you're here. Next up, we've got a coin from the early 1970s that makes this one look almost ordinary. But trust me, it's anything but. Sliding into number 9, the 1988 Kandy Half Dollar. Now, at first glance, 1988 doesn't exactly scream treasure. It's not some ancient relic from the Civil War era. But this coin carries a hidden twist that has turned it into one of the most chased modern halves on the market. Struck at the Denver Mint, the D proudly stamped on its obverse, the 1988D saw one of the lowest high-grade survival rates of any Kandy Half Dollar in the entire decade. Why? Because in the late 80s, half dollars were rarely hoarded. They circulated hard, they wore down fast, and most were tossed into change drawers until they were almost unrecognizable. This circulated example tells that exact story. The fields are worn smooth in places, the rim shows gentle flattening, and yet the portrait still holds that familiar sharpness around the eye and jawline. Flip it over, and you'll see the reverse still carries defined feather detail on the eagle's wings, a sign this coin was spared the worst of the wear. And here's where it gets thrilling. Despite being a late 20th century coin, examples like this in solid circulated condition can already command $500 to $900 from collectors chasing date and mint mark runs. But let's push further. If you manage to find an uncirculated 1988 Kandy Half Dollar, you're looking at a whole new ballgame. Auction records show pristine mint state specimens hitting $25,000 to $35,000. And in the case of a few ultra-rare misstrikes, like a dramatic off-center or a missing clad layer, values have rocketed into the 350,000,400,000 range. Yes, a coin from the Reagan era, worth more than some people's entire retirement fund. What really sends shivers down the spine is thinking about how many of these slipped through hands, unnoticed, in grocery stores and bankrolls just 30 years ago. That coffee you bought in '88, you might have paid with one of these, and unknowingly spent a small fortune. If you're enjoying these jaw-dropping finds, make sure you subscribe, because the deeper we go, the crazier these values get. And you do not want to miss the number 1 spot. Next up, we're moving into the 1960s, where silver, rarity, and pure American history collide in a way that will leave you absolutely stunned. At number 8, the 1989p Kandy Half Dollar. Now, the P mint mark might not scream rarity to the casual eye after all. The Philadelphia Mint has been striking coins since the very birth of the United States. But the 1989p has a quiet secret that puts it squarely on the radar of every serious half-dollar collector: a year of transition in production quality, combined with one of the most notorious, striking inconsistencies in modern mint history. This circulated example bears all the marks of a life well spent in pockets and purses. Light scuffing across the portrait, a softening of the highest points in the hair, and the faintly rounded rim that comes only from decades of changing hands. And yet, it still shows an even, attractive wear, the kind that tells a collector this coin has never been abused or cleaned, preserving its original mint character under the patina. Now here's where the numbers start to grab you. A circulated 1989p in decent shape can fetch $600 to $1,100 in today's collector market, remarkable for a coin barely into its mid-30s. Push it to mint state, and you're suddenly staring at values in the $28,000 to $40,000 range. But here's the bombshell: if you happen to find one of the few surviving double-struck 1989ps, or worse yet, a reverse die rotation error, you've just leapt into six-figure territory. Auction records show the right error example crossing $375,000 for a coin most people would overlook as pocket change. Think about that for a second: a half-dollar that may have been rattling in a toll booth coin return in the early 90s could now buy you a fully restored 1960 Mustang with cash left over. That's the kind of jaw-dropper that makes collectors dig through their old coffee cans of change late at night. And if you think that's impressive, the next coin in our countdown takes us into a year where a single minting slip turned an already scarce half into a near mythical prize. Brace yourself. The numbers are about to climb. Coming in at number 7, the 1985D Kandy Half Dollar. Now, the mid-1980s might not seem like a hotbed for numismatic drama, but the 1985D proves that looks can be deceiving. Minted in Denver, this coin emerged in a year when production numbers were relatively low, and more importantly, when quality control quietly stumbled. The result? A surprisingly high number of striking anomalies and surface flaws that, decades later, have turned the surviving well-preserved examples into modern treasures. This circulated piece carries the marks of the time it's traveled through. The obverse shows gentle flattening in the hair and cheek, but the D mint mark is still bold and proud. The reverse eagle's feathers retain just enough definition to signal that this coin avoided the heavy, damaging wear so many 1985D have suffered. It's that balance worn, but with key details intact, that makes this one desirable to collectors who prize originality over artificial shine. On the open market, a circulated 1985D in this kind of shape can easily reach $700 to $1,200. But move into uncirculated territory, and you're suddenly talking $30,000 to $42,000. And here's the twist: documented mint errors from this year, like broad strikes, double dies, or partial collar strikes, have brought absolute shock at auction. One particularly clean double-struck 1985D fetched over $390,000, leaving even veteran dealers stunned. It's the kind of coin that reminds you how deceptive age can be. The mid-80s weren't that long ago, but time has a way of thinning the herd. Millions were minted, but only a whisper of them remain in the kinds of conditions that serious collectors crave. And as the supply tightens, prices only have one direction to go. Now, if you think the Denver Mint surprises are exciting, wait until you see what the Philadelphia Mint cooked up just 1 year earlier, a coin that hides a story most people have never heard, and a value that can rewrite your retirement plan. At number 6, the 1965 Kandy Half Dollar. Now, we're stepping back into a year that changed American coinage forever. 1965 was the first year after the U.S. Mint stripped 90% silver out of circulating half dollars, a shock to the public and collectors alike. But here's the twist: while the new coins were struck in a 40% silver-clad composition, the transition wasn't perfectly clean. A handful of 1965 halves were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964. And those mistakes are now among the most fiercely hunted modern rarities in American numismatics. The circulated example is pure history. In your hand, the surfaces carry that soft, even where you only get from decades of use. The high points of the design, the hair, the cheekbone, the eagle's wingtips are smooth from countless trades, yet the fields still hold traces of original mint luster. It's the kind of honest circulation that tells you this coin lived through the late 60s, a time of space races, Vietnam, and cultural change, passing quietly from one pocket to the next. In average circulated condition, a standard 1965 Kandy Half Dollar will bring in around $25 to $40 for its silver content alone. But in choice circulated grades, the value can reach $300 to $500. Among collectors chasing complete runs, push it to uncirculated, and you're staring at $5,000 to $7,500. And here's where jaws drop. If you find one of those elusive wrong planchet errors, the 90% silver strikes, the price jumps into the stratosphere. Auction records show examples selling for over $420,000, with bidding wars erupting in seconds. Imagine that. A coin worth 50 cents in 1965, suddenly worth more than the median US home price when the Beatles were topping the charts. And the kicker? Most people can't tell the difference just by looking. You have to know the subtle weight and sound of silver to spot one. That's why this date keeps silver stackers and collectors alike up at night, checking every half dollar that passes through their hands. And as shocking as that is, the next coin takes us even further back, into an era when silver was still king, and one rare condition twist turns a common date into a breathtaking six-figure find. At number 5, the 1983 Kandy Half Dollar. On paper, this one shouldn't be a showstopper. Minted in Denver in the early 80s, it was a workhorse coin meant for everyday commerce, and most of them live hard lives in pockets, cash drawers, and bank bags. But here's what makes 1983 so fascinating: the Denver Mint that year struggled with subtle striking weaknesses and planchet quality issues. As a result, finding a sharply struck, well-preserved example in circulated condition has become a real challenge. The circulated piece carries that rugged 1980 seconds char light, even where softens the hairlines and cheek on the obverse, while the D mint mark still punches through with crisp clarity. Flip it over, and you'll find the eagle's wings still defined enough to catch the light, though the highest feather tips show gentle smoothing from decades of use. The rim is clean, no major dings, and that, for a 1983, is a small miracle. Now, here's where your jaw drops. A solid circulated example like this can already command $800 to $1,400 from collectors hunting this tougher date. Upgrade to uncirculated, and the number skyrockets to $35,000 or more. And then, the real shocker: documented major errors from this year, like double die obverses, massive off-center strikes, or the incredibly rare missing clad layer, have pulled in auction results north of $450,000. Yes, you heard that right. A coin minted during the same year Michael Jackson's Thriller ruled the charts could now buy you a luxury vacation home. And the best part? These coins still show up in the wild from time to time, often overlooked because of their modern date. That's why seasoned collectors keep an eagle eye on every 1982 half dollar they handle, because every so often, one turns out to be a life-changing find. And if you thought the ATS were exciting, our next coin comes from a year when collector demand and sheer survival rate collided to create a modern half-dollar legend. The kind of coin that makes even veteran dealers lean in for a closer look. At number 4, the 1968D Kandy Half Dollar. Now, this date marks a huge turning point for half-dollar collectors. It was the first year since 1964 that the Denver Mint struck half dollars for circulation, and it came during the short-lived 40% silver era. That silver content alone makes it a desirable coin, but there's another reason 1968D is so hot in collector circles. It was one of the few modern halves to be minted exclusively in Denver that year, giving it a unique place in the series, and making high-grade survivors surprisingly tough to find. This circulated example is a time capsule of late 60s America. The obverse still carries the warm glow of its silver alloy in under decades of wear. You'll see soft flattening on the hair above the ear and on the cheek, while the D mint mark below the bust remains clear and sharp. Flip it over, and the eagle still shows solid wing feather detail, though the highest points have smoothed from honest circulation. The rim is complete, no major gouges, which, for a coin that's over half a century old, is a collector's dream. Now, here's where things get interesting. The silver alone gives a circulated 1968D a baseline value of around $4 to $6. But that's just the floor. Choice circulated examples can bring $150 to $50, while uncirculated pieces soar into the $4,000 to $6,000 range. But the true headline makers? The rare 1968D double die obverses and minting errors, especially dramatic off-center strikes, have hit auction prices over $475,000. That's nearly $500,000. For a coin most people wouldn't think twice about spending in 1970. Think about the history it's carried. This coin could have been in a soldier's pocket returning from Vietnam, or used to buy gasoline back when it was 34 cents a gallon. Now, it's a piece of Americana that commands respect and cash from serious collectors everywhere. And the countdown's about to heat up, because our next coin is from a year when a single, almost invisible minting detail turns a humble half dollar into a record-shattering masterpiece. You're going to want to lean in for this one. At number 3, the 1980D Kandy Half Dollar. Now, the dawn of the 1980s was a strange time for half dollars. Silver was gone from circulation coins. Public use of the denomination was dwindling, and yet, the Denver Mint that year produced a sleeper rarity. You see, 1980D halves are notorious for having one of the lowest survival rates in top condition for the entire modern series. Why? Because they were released straight into circulation in massive quantities, with very little saved by collectors at the time. This circulated example tells that exact story. The fields have that soft, matte-like patina from decades of handling. The hairlines on the obverse are worn smooth in places. The cheek shows even wear, and yet, the D mint mark under the bust still stands proud. On the reverse, the eagle's body is well defined, but the wingtips have that gentle rounding that comes only from years of honest commerce. The rim is intact, no serious nicks, which is a big plus for a coin that's seen this much action. Value-wise, a circulated 1980D in solid condition can pull $900 to $1,500 today from date and mint mark specialists. Take it up to mint state, and you're looking at $38,000 to $45,000. But here's the jaw-dropper: a handful of 1980D halves exist with spectacular minting errors, like triple strikes or wrong planchet strikes, where the coin was accidentally made on a foreign denomination's blank. Those have shocked the auction world with hammer prices exceeding $490,000. It's the kind of coin that hides in plain sight. For decades, people passed them along in vending machines, toll booths, and poker games, never realizing they were holding what could one day become a six-figure trophy. And as time passes, every worn survivor like this one makes the remaining high-grade and error examples that much rarer, and that much more valuable. Now, we're down to the final two. And trust me, these last coins are where the wow factor goes through the roof. The next one comes from a year that produced one of the most spectacular mint blunders in half-dollar history. A mistake so rare that when one comes up for sale, the bidding floor feels like a war zone. And here we are. Number 1 on our list, the 1977 Kandy Half Dollar. Now, at first glance, 1977 might seem like just another post-silver era date, but the truth is, this coin hides one of the most electrifying secrets in the entire half-dollar series. In that year, the US Mint in both Philadelphia and Denver struck millions of halves. But something unexpected happened. A tiny handful of 1977 halves were produced with severe die misalignments and doubled features so bold they can be seen with the naked eye. These errors have turned an otherwise common coin into an auction room legend. This circulated example carries the look of a survivor. The portrait is worn but dignified, the hair detail softly fading into the fields, the high points on the cheek and jaw smooth from years of honest use. Flip it over, and the eagle still spreads its wings proudly, though the finest feathers are now muted by the passage of time. It's the kind of coin that tells a story from the Carter administration's economic struggles to the daily lives of Americans in the late 70s, all in 50 cents of copper nickel. Now here's where the jaw hits the floor. A standard, circulated 1977, half might trade for $200 to $350 to date collectors who prize even wear and originality. An uncirculated example, easily $40,000 to $50,000. But the right 1977 one, with a bold double die obverse or a perfectly preserved off-center strike, has sold for over $525,000 at major auctions. That's over $500,000 for a coin you could have pulled from a bankroll in the late 1970s. The sheer improbability of it is what gives this coin its magic. Every time you hold a 1977 half dollar, you're left wondering, could this be the one? Could it be the elusive six-figure rarity hiding in plain sight? That possibility is what keeps treasure hunters, collectors, and silver stackers searching year after year, and that's the thrill of this entire countdown, proof that sometimes history's greatest treasures aren't locked away in museums or buried in the ground. Sometimes they're sitting quietly in a jar of loose change, just waiting for someone with the right eye to uncover their true value. So, if you've enjoyed this journey through the top 10 Kandy half dollars, hit that subscribe button, because the next list we're working on might just reveal the coin that's hiding in your pocket right now.